Hello, you're on the Reddit Reveals channel. You ever open someone's phone and feel the world split? Not explode, not crash, just split, like the quietest kind of apocalypse. It was 2:14 a.m., and the glow from her screen lit up the ceiling like moonlight. She was asleep beside me, mouth half open, still breathing like she was dreaming about clouds and not this. Not what I was looking at. I wasn't snooping. I swear. I hadn't even meant to look. She'd fallen asleep watching videos, and the screen kept buzzing. Like it wanted me to see it. Like it needed me to. I tapped it. Locked. I tapped again. The password was Museum 42. I knew that because it was the same password she used for our Netflix account, our Wi-Fi, our joint Spotify. She loved museums. She cried once in the Rothko wing. Said Red shouldn't make her feel so much. So yeah, I typed it in. No hesitation. That's on me. Messages. A folder named Classes in her gallery. But she wasn't taking any classes. The first photo I opened wasn't graphic. Not at all. That almost made it worse. It was just her, in a green sweater I've never seen, sitting on a bench I didn't recognize. Head tilted. Smiling. Not cheesing for the camera like she does with me, but really smiling. A soft, stupid, shy smile I hadn't seen in what? Months? The kind of smile you wear when someone makes you feel new. The photo was dated 2 Thursdays ago, when she said she had a migraine and needed the house quiet. I remember because I ate cold soup in the garage just to give her space. I opened the next photo, then the next. Each one was somehow worse than the last. Not because they showed anything scandalous, because they didn't. They showed two people slowly falling into something that looked a lot like love. A kind of love that had nothing to do with me. Then I hit the video. 10 seconds. Shaky hands. Her voice saying, "Don't laugh, I'm serious. This has been the best part of my week." End clip. No response from whoever was filming. No face. No name. Just silence. That silence. It hollowed me out. I locked the phone, put it back on the charger, and lay there pretending I didn't see anything. For 6 hours. Eyes open. Breath held. In the morning, she made coffee. Hummed a song. Kissed my cheek like always. And I said nothing. I left the house at 8:07 a.m. sharp. Got in my car. Drove around the block 4 times. Then I parked in front of the museum. Not for any symbolic reason. Just because it felt like the only place I could sit without screaming. That was 3 weeks ago. I still haven't told her what I saw. But last night, she came to me with her phone in her hand, shaking, and said 5 words I didn't expect. "I have to show you something." And that's when everything I thought I knew about her, about them, flipped upside down. She didn't look scared. That's what rattled me first. People are usually scared when they're caught, even if it's just the idea of being misunderstood. But she wasn't. She looked resolved, like she'd rehearsed whatever was about to come out of her mouth 100 times and wasn't going to let herself back out. She placed her phone on the kitchen island between us. I was pouring cereal. Just that. A normal morning ritual, milk hitting flakes, everything calm. Then her voice cut into it like a crack in glass. "I have to show you something." I didn't say a word, just stared. I could tell she was reading my face, probably looking for signs that I already knew. But I gave her nothing. The image of her from that video, the sweater, the smile, the bench, it was like a film playing on the inside of my skull, looping endlessly. It muted everything else. She unlocked her phone, not the one I had looked through. I realized this was a different case entirely, and opened a message thread. There were only 3 texts visible before she handed it over. One of them was from her. "We can't keep doing this." The other was from the unknown sender. "You said that last time." And the third, sent the night before. "I told him. Or I'm going to. Soon." My stomach turned, but I still said nothing. She waited, then added softly, "It's not what you think. It's always not what you think, isn't it? That's the anthem of betrayal." But I nodded, if only to get her talking. And she did. According to her, this wasn't an affair. This wasn't cheating. This was, her words, a mistake that grew legs and wandered too far from home. She said she met him at an evening art course she'd signed up for secretly. Not to hide it from me, she insisted, but because she wanted something that was hers, something that didn't exist inside the orbit of us. A place where she could remember who she was before mortgage payments, laundry cycles, and me asking what's for dinner every 3rd evening. The man's name was Owen, 46, widower, taught sculpture, and thought the world ended after September 11th. I don't even know what that last part meant. She said it like it was a defining characteristic. The blue umbrella was a gift, not from him, but from the school itself. Welcome to the fall session, printed on the inside. It wasn't even her old umbrella, just one that looked eerily similar. She hadn't meant for anything to happen. He asked her to stay late after class to help clean up clay. Then one day, he asked her if she wanted to grab soup. She went. Then she went again. When I asked her if they ever touched, and I did, finally, after several false starts, she paused just a little too long before saying, "Not in the way you're thinking." So yeah, that means yes, but not in the obvious way. Then she dropped the bomb. I ended it before you ever saw the photos. Before you ever opened the phone. That's what I came here to show you, the proof. I looked at the screen again. There were voice memos. 3 of them, labeled by date. She hit play on the oldest one. His voice, older than mine, steadier, filled the kitchen like a ghost. "I think I love you," he said. Just that. Then silence. She played the next one. Hers. "I can't be your escape hatch. I have a life. I have Curtis." Hearing her say my name out loud, recorded, shook me. Then the final memo. His again. "If you walk away, I won't chase you. But I need you to know, you're the only thing that made me feel real again." She stopped the playback. Said, "I recorded it all because I knew if I ever had to explain this, you wouldn't believe me." And she was right. I still don't. Because here's the thing, this Owen guy, he's not a ghost. He's not some past mistake buried in the voice memos of a different phone. He's real. And 3 hours after that conversation, I saw him. Not in the way you're thinking. Not with her. I saw him in a place he shouldn't have been. And he recognized me. Which means Eliza didn't tell me everything. Not even close. I don't believe in coincidence. I used to. I used to think the world had this funny little habit of weaving chaos into meaning by accident. Like how you hear a song in the morning and then hear it again in a stranger's car hours later, or how your old friend texts you seconds after you dream about them. But not anymore. Not after that day in the parking lot. It was supposed to be a quick errand. I needed batteries. That's it. Nothing cinematic about it. I pulled into the strip mall near Larch Avenue. The one with the sad carpet store and the permanently grand opening sushi place. Parked in the second row, right beside the overflowing donation bin, and started walking toward the drugstore. That's when I saw him. He was leaning against the side of a gray Civic, arms crossed, one foot up on the bumper like he was waiting for someone. Older than me by maybe 10 years. Thin. Not frail, just narrow. Eyes dark. The kind of dark that doesn't blink too often. He was wearing a weathered black coat and a brown corduroy scarf, despite the heat. And he looked right at me. I didn't know it was him at first. Not by name. Not by anything Eliza had described. Because truthfully, she hadn't said much about his appearance. But I knew. Something in me just knew. My legs slowed on their own. My heart dropped 2 steps behind my chest. Because he didn't look confused or surprised to see me. He looked expectant. He nodded once, as if to say, "Yup, that's you." And then, I swear on everything, he smiled. Not a taunt. Not a friendly gesture. Just calm. Measured. The kind of smile someone gives you when they know something you don't. I walked past him, pretending I didn't notice, and stepped into the store with my pulse buzzing behind my eyes. I didn't even buy the batteries. Just stood in aisle 4 for 5 full minutes before slipping out through the side exit like a coward. Back in my car, I texted Eliza. "What does Owen look like?" It took her a while to respond. Long enough for me to see him drive away. Slow. No rush. Like someone who had all the time in the world. Her reply came 10 minutes later. Why? That was the only thing she sent. Not tall, white hair, green eyes. Or why are you asking? Or you didn't run into him, did you? Just why? And right then, I knew she'd lied again. Or at least, she hadn't told me the full truth. I didn't respond. I waited until I got home. She was on the couch, reading, legs tucked under her like she always sat before this whole thing hollowed out our living room. I stood in the doorway longer than I meant to, just looking at her. She looked up, smiled the same way she always had, and asked, "Everything okay?" I told her I saw him. Her face froze, just a flicker, like a paused video. Then she recovered. "You sure?" she asked. I nodded. She closed the book. Quiet. No panic. Just still. I asked her what he wanted, why he was in our part of town. She looked down at her lap and said, "Maybe he wanted to see you." That answer made me cold all over. I asked what she meant. She wouldn't say. She said she wasn't sure. That maybe he just needed closure. That maybe he missed what they had, or didn't have. She kept using words that blurred things on purpose. And then she said something that made no sense. He told me about you. Before I told him your name. He said he had a dream about you. And when I showed him a picture, he said, that's him. He'd seen you before. That was the moment the floor fell out from under me. Because how does a stranger, some lonely sculpture teacher, dream about me before ever seeing my face? Unless, of course, he wasn't a stranger. I barely slept that night. She did. Peacefully. Like a woman who had nothing left to confess, or too much to ever start. The next morning, there was a letter taped to our mailbox. No envelope. No stamp. Just folded paper with my name written in sharp, tiny print. Inside, one sentence. You were there that night. I remember the sound of your shoes. I haven't told Eliza about the letter yet, because I'm starting to remember something, too. And if it's what I think it is, this wasn't just her betrayal. I might have played a part in something I've buried deep. It's been 4 days since I found the letter. I kept it hidden, folded neatly between pages 74 and 75 of The Stranger, a book I've never read but keep on the shelf because it makes me look like the kind of person who does. I didn't confront Eliza. I didn't ask more questions. I went silent, the kind of silence that hangs in the air like static before a thunderstorm. She noticed, of course. She kept tiptoeing around me, like I was a pile of glass waiting to be stepped on. I think she assumed I was just trying to process everything she'd already confessed. She didn't know it had gone beyond her now. Way beyond her. Last night, I had a dream, or maybe it was a memory. I can't tell the difference anymore. In the dream, I was in our garage, barefoot, standing in the middle of the oil-stained floor while thunder rumbled outside. The power was out. I was holding something, but I couldn't look down to see what. Every time I tried, the lights flickered and the garage door creaked open an inch, as if something, or someone, was on the other side, waiting. And then I heard it. Footsteps, but not coming toward me. Going away. Fast. Heavy. Like someone running. And I swear on my life, they were my footsteps. I know the way I walk. The rhythm of my stride. I've heard it echo off that concrete floor 1,000 times. I was hearing myself run away. From what? I don't know. But I woke up sweating, my throat dry, my chest aching like I'd been holding my breath for hours. The strangest part? My feet hurt. Both of them. Real, physical soreness. The kind you feel after standing too long on cold cement. I went down to the garage around 6 a.m. It was quiet as always. Normal. But there were scuff marks near the workbench. Fresh ones. Like something had been dragged. Or dropped. And then I saw it. A single nail. Rusted. Bent at the tip. Lying in the exact center of the garage. I don't remember leaving it there. I don't remember using nails for anything recently. But there it was. Out of place in the most deliberate way. I picked it up. Cold as ice. Heavier than it should have been. And when I turned it in my hand, I saw something almost invisible scratched into the shaft. October 14th. I didn't recognize the date. I went back upstairs and looked through my calendar. Nothing marked. Nothing scheduled. But something about the number kept pulling at me, like a toothache in the back of my mind. I checked our shared cloud account. Eliza had uploaded 3 photos on October 14th, all of them of an art installation downtown. Abstract metal sculptures arranged in a spiral, titled Echoes of the Self. I don't remember going with her that day. I don't remember that day at all. But in one of the photos, there I am. In the background. Blurred. Out of focus. But undeniably me. Standing at the edge of the exhibit, facing away from the camera, hands in my coat pockets. I asked her about it over dinner, as casually as I could. I said, when did we go to that spiral art thing again? She blinked. October 14th, remember? You hated it. Said it gave you a headache. I forced a smile. Right. I must have blocked it out. But I hadn't blocked it out. There was nothing to block. I genuinely had no recollection of being there. And yet, there I was. Caught in her photo like a ghost passing through. Later that night, I opened my sock drawer to look for something. Anything. That might help connect the dots. I didn't know what I expected to find. Instead, I found a receipt. Dated October 14th. Time stamped 11:42 p.m. Location, Greenwood Storage, Unit 108B. It was under a pair of rolled-up gym socks. Not recent. Faded, but legible. I haven't rented a storage unit. Not now. Not ever. But apparently, I have the key. It was taped to the back of the receipt with a piece of brittle, yellowing Scotch tape. Silver, slightly dented, with 108B etched crudely into the bow. And that was when everything shifted. Because Eliza didn't just lie to me. I think I lied to myself. And tomorrow, I'm going to that unit. Alone. The drive to Greenwood Storage felt like a nightmare in slow motion. I didn't tell Eliza where I was going. Hell, I didn't even tell myself I was doing it. It was like my body was just operating on autopilot, going through the motions while my brain screamed at me to turn around. But I couldn't. I had to know what was in that storage unit. I had to know what I was being kept from, what she'd been hiding, and maybe, just maybe, what I had been hiding from myself. When I arrived, the sun had already begun to set, casting everything in an orange, muted glow. The parking lot was mostly empty, save for a couple of moving trucks and a few old cars parked near the entrance. The place was dead quiet, as if no one had ever come or gone in years. The key in my pocket felt heavier with every step I took toward the entrance. It had been months since I even thought about renting a storage unit, let alone one that had been hidden away for so long. I walked past the row of lockers, each one marked with a tiny metal number. The cold metal doors seemed to whisper as the wind blew through the lot, making me second-guess every single decision I'd ever made. Finally, I found it, Unit 108B. It was in the very back, tucked between two larger, more worn-down lockers. It almost looked forgotten, just like the receipt had been, buried under layers of dust, time, and unspoken secrets. The key slid into the lock with a satisfying click, and for a moment, I thought I might be dreaming. Maybe I was still lying to myself, just trying to make sense of a situation that could never make sense. But no, the lock turned. The door creaked open, and the dim light from the single overhead bulb revealed the room inside. It was smaller than I thought, only about 10 feet by 10 feet, with a concrete floor and a couple of old, empty cardboard boxes stacked neatly in the corner. A single chair, a small wooden table, and a large, dusty mirror, old and cracked, leaning against the far wall. But what made my stomach churn was the blanket in the center of the floor. The edges were neatly folded, but it wasn't the neatness that made my heart stop. It was the smell. I don't know how to explain it. It wasn't anything specific, just wrong, like something old, like something that had been left to rot. I stepped in, cautiously, and knelt down beside the blanket. As my fingers brushed against it, I felt something beneath, something heavy. I pulled it back, and there it was. A small metal box. No markings. Just a plain, rusty box, locked tight. The kind you'd find in an attic, buried beneath forgotten things. My fingers shook as I set the box on the floor and inspected it. There was no keyhole, no obvious way to open it. Just a smooth, seamless surface. I sat there for a moment, just staring at it, wondering how it had ended up here. And then I remembered something Eliza had said earlier, something that hadn't quite made sense at the time. She mentioned that Owen had given her something before they'd ended things. But she'd never told me what it was. Was this it? Was this what she had been hiding from me? I wasn't sure if I was more scared of what might be inside that box, or what it might mean for me if I never found out. My phone buzzed in my pocket, snapping me out of my trance. It was a message from Eliza. "Where are you?" I hesitated. I wasn't ready to go back yet. Not with this box sitting in front of me. But I couldn't ignore her, either. I texted back, just picking something up. "Be home soon." I closed the message and looked back at the box. It felt like I was standing on the edge of something I couldn't control. Like all the lies and omissions were gathering in this one room. This one, locked-away place. And the longer I stayed, the more the truth seemed like it was going to escape, whether I was ready for it or not. I tried to pick up the box again, but this time, I noticed something strange. A small piece of paper was wedged into the corner, tucked under the metal edge, almost like someone had tried to hide it there. I pulled it out carefully, unfolding the delicate paper. The handwriting on it was shaky, hurried. It said, "I'm sorry. I had no choice. I had to make him remember. It was the only way." I felt a coldness settle deep in my chest. The handwriting was unfamiliar, but something about it felt so familiar, like I had seen it before, like I should have recognized it. And that's when it hit me. I hadn't just come to this storage unit because of Eliza. I hadn't just followed some trail of breadcrumbs. I had been here before. Not in the way I'd been aware of, though. It was like a long-forgotten memory was creeping back into focus, a memory I'd buried so deep that I hadn't even realized I was erasing it. I had been in this unit before, with Eliza, and we hadn't been alone. I don't know how long I sat there with the note in my hand. Time seemed to stretch in that small, suffocating storage unit, like the air had thickened and the walls were closing in around me. The paper felt heavier now, as if the words on it were anchoring me to something I wasn't ready to understand. I wasn't ready to face the truth. Not yet. Not while I still couldn't make sense of what was happening. The piece of paper still clutched in my hand. I stood up slowly and looked around. The boxes in the corner, the chair, the mirror. Everything felt more familiar now, but not in a comforting way. More like the aftermath of a nightmare you can't remember fully, but you know it left a scar. My skin prickled with the uncomfortable sensation that I was starting to connect dots that shouldn't have been connected. I looked back at the box, the one that had caused my stomach to twist in knots ever since I found it. The box wasn't just something Eliza had hidden. It wasn't just some strange object left behind by a relationship I didn't know about. It was ours. That much became clear as soon as I touched it again. The more I thought about it, the more I realized it wasn't a new secret. It was an old one. An old wound that had been stitched up and buried beneath a layer of normal life. And Eliza hadn't just kept something from me. She had kept it from herself too. Whatever had happened in this storage unit wasn't something she'd forgotten. It was something she was trying to forget. Suddenly, the pieces started to fall into place, but they didn't fall in an orderly way. They scattered. I remembered flashes of a night I couldn't place. A night where everything felt blurry and out of focus. The garage door slamming shut. The smell of cigarette smoke. A whisper in the dark that I couldn't quite catch. We did this together. The voice. It wasn't Eliza's. It was my voice. My hands started shaking, and I dropped the note to the floor, my mind racing. The more I tried to piece it together, the further it slipped from my grasp. And that's when I realized something terrifying. I don't remember. There was a whole part of my life I couldn't recall, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't access it. It was locked away in the same way that storage unit had been locked. Hidden, buried, waiting for me to uncover it. I stood there for a long time, staring at the box. But before I could even begin to figure out how to open it, I heard something, a noise. It was faint at first, like a hum. I thought it was just the wind, or maybe the sound of the unit's old metal frame settling. But then I heard it again, louder this time. A rustling, like something moving behind me. I spun around, expecting to see a shadow, but the storage unit was empty. Nothing had changed. The chair was still there. The mirror still leaned against the wall, cracked and unsettling. The boxes sat untouched in the corner, as though nothing had moved in years. But the sound persisted. I stepped toward the back wall, my heart hammering in my chest. The rustling was growing louder, almost like whispers now. They weren't coming from the boxes, but from the mirror. It was subtle, barely perceptible at first, but now I could feel it. A presence, something alive, reflected in that broken glass. My pulse quickened, and I felt my stomach tighten with dread. I approached the mirror cautiously, not knowing what I expected to see. At first, there was nothing. Just my reflection, pale and drawn, with dark circles under my eyes. But as I stared into the cracked surface, the image began to distort. Not in the way you'd expect from a broken mirror. It wasn't the usual cracked lines or shattering reflections. It was something deeper, something more unsettling. I saw us. Not Eliza and me. Not in the way you think. But another version of us, a younger version. There we were, sitting in front of the same mirror. Only this time, we weren't looking at ourselves. We were looking at something else. There was a man between us, standing in the reflection, his back turned toward the camera. I couldn't place him. I couldn't remember his face. But the way he stood, the way he looked in the mirror, it felt like he knew me. Like he was part of my past, a past I had somehow forgotten. The reflection flickered, and I saw flashes of something else. A hallway, a door, a faint outline of a face. And then, nothing. My head spun, and I staggered back, my hands gripping the sides of my head. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't understand what was happening. Was this some kind of hallucination? Was I losing my mind? But then, just as quickly as it had started, it stopped. The mirror was still. The reflection was normal again. But the feeling didn't leave. The feeling of being watched. Of not knowing what was real anymore. I grabbed the box and ran out of the storage unit, not bothering to lock the door behind me. I needed to get out. I needed to understand what had just happened. But as I stepped into the parking lot, something caught my eye. A figure standing near the entrance. It was Owen. He wasn't looking at me, but I knew he had seen me. He was standing there, with his arms crossed, just like he had been the other day. And then he did something that sent a cold shiver down my spine. He looked at me, not with anger, not with surprise, but with recognition. And that's when it hit me. Owen wasn't just some teacher. He wasn't just someone Eliza had been involved with. He was part of something much bigger, something I wasn't ready to face. I took a step back, heart pounding, but Owen didn't move. He just stood there, watching me, waiting. And I realized something else in that moment. He knew what I had forgotten. I don't know how long I stood there, staring at Owen, before I forced my legs to move. The parking lot felt like it was closing in on me, a vacuum sucking the air out of the space between us. He hadn't spoken a word, just stood there, arms crossed, his face unreadable. But I couldn't ignore the feeling creeping up my spine, that he knew. He knew something I didn't. And the fact that he wasn't moving toward me, or running away, only deepened the sense that I was part of a game I didn't understand. I turned away, my heart hammering, my head a dizzying mess of confusion. I was already starting to forget the cold sweat on my skin, the memory of the mirror, the distorted reflection, the whispers in the garage, everything that had led me to this point. It was all slipping through my fingers, like sand in the wind. But then something inside me snapped. I couldn't run anymore. Not from Eliza. Not from this. I had to go back. I had to confront her, and I had to ask the questions that were clawing at my insides. Because the longer I ignored them, the louder the whispers became, the darker the reality felt. I got in my car, drove home, my mind racing with everything I'd seen, everything I'd remembered, and the most haunting thought of all. What if Eliza had been telling the truth all along? I parked in front of our house, the lights still on, casting long shadows across the front yard. As I stepped out of the car, I hesitated. The door was open. Eliza never left the door unlocked. She never forgot. Not once. The familiar comfort of home felt like a prison now. I walked through the door, and there she was, sitting on the couch, flipping through a magazine. She glanced up at me, her eyes tired, but still normal, as if nothing had happened, as if we hadn't just crossed into some terrifying new reality. "You're home early," she said. "Everything okay?" I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, staring at her. The woman I thought I knew. The woman who had been so many things to me. But now, I wasn't sure who she really was. What had been real? What had been a lie? What had I forgotten? "Eliza," I said finally, my voice low, "what is going on? What am I missing? Why did I see Owen today? Why did he know me?" She looked up slowly, her face unreadable. Then, with a deep breath, she put the magazine down. "We need to talk," she said. My blood ran cold. The way she said it, it wasn't just a request. It was an invitation. An invitation to hear things I didn't want to know. And in that moment, I realized that everything, all of it, the mystery, the lies, the disjointed memories, had led to this moment. And that meant the truth was far worse than I could have imagined. "Eliza," I saw the note. The box. The mirror. The receipt. "You've been hiding things from me." And Owen. I trailed off, swallowing hard. I couldn't bring myself to say what had been gnawing at me all day. The haunting thought that had kept me from sleep. She nodded slowly. "I know. And I'm sorry." Her voice was soft, but it carried a weight. She wasn't defensive. She wasn't trying to hide. She was resigned. And that scared me more than anything else. "Eliza, I don't understand. I don't know how we got here," I whispered, my voice breaking. Her eyes flickered with pain. "I know. But you have to believe me when I say I never wanted you to know. I never wanted to drag you into this. I thought if I just buried it, it would stay buried. But it didn't. I felt like I was drowning. Like I was surrounded by shadows that kept shifting and slipping through my hands. What didn't stay buried? What am I missing?" She stood up, walking over to the window. She didn't look at me, but I could hear the trembling in her voice when she spoke again. "The thing is, Curtis, you've been a part of this all along." My pulse stopped. I couldn't breathe. "What? You were there. That night. The night I met Owen." Her voice cracked as she said it, and she turned to face me. "The night we all made the mistake we could never undo." I shook my head, my thoughts spiraling, unable to make sense of what she was saying. No, that's not possible. I would remember." She swallowed hard, her eyes never leaving mine. "But you don't, do you? You don't remember, because you can't." I stared at her in disbelief. "What do you mean? What happened that night?" Her eyes filled with tears. Owen wasn't just some stranger. He wasn't just someone I met at a class. He's part of your past too. He's a part of both of us. And what you're forgetting, Curtis, it's not just him. It's us. It's everything. It's what we've been running from. I felt the room spin. I couldn't grasp the words. What are you talking about? I demanded, my voice shaking. She shook her head, tears streaming down her face. I'm sorry. I never meant for you to find out like this. But it's the truth. You were involved in something with Owen. Something dangerous. And when it all went wrong, you erased it. You erased everything. I felt the ground shift beneath me. My whole life, every piece of it, felt like it was crumbling away. Eliza wasn't just hiding something from me. She was hiding the truth about myself. A version of me I didn't know. A version of me that had forgotten what had happened that night. And in that moment, I realized something that made my blood run cold. What if Owen wasn't just a part of my past? What if he was part of my present too? I don't know what I expected. Maybe to collapse in disbelief or finally scream the questions I'd been holding in for so long. But the truth, the one that Eliza had been hinting at, wasn't anything like I imagined. She stood there, tears still fresh on her cheeks, her hands trembling at her sides. You have to understand, Curtis. We didn't want this to happen. Neither of us. But we were in it together, even if you've forgotten. I stared at her, still struggling to process the weight of her words. I didn't know what it was. I didn't know why I couldn't remember. But then, something shifted inside of me. A small, distant memory flickered, just a spark. I didn't push it away. Instead, I leaned into it, willing myself to remember, to face the truth that had been buried so deep. I took a step toward her, and she didn't step back. Her eyes were wide, filled with vulnerability, as if she too was afraid of what was about to unfold. I was in therapy, I said quietly, the words spilling out without warning. I was trying to remember, but I couldn't. It's like something had been erased. She nodded, wiping her eyes. You were in therapy for a reason. And it wasn't just about the memory loss. It was about something more. Something that was tied to your past, and our past together. And then it hit me. It wasn't just Owen. It wasn't just Eliza's secret. It was my own buried trauma. The night that had haunted us both. The night that caused the fractures between us. I didn't need to remember it all. I didn't need the details to know that we'd been through something painful, something that had changed us both in ways I hadn't understood. But somehow, through it all, we'd survived. We'd moved on. We'd found each other again. I took her hands in mine, holding them tightly. Eliza, I don't know everything. I don't know why I forgot, or why it all happened. But I'm here now, and I want to move forward. With you. Her eyes softened, the tension in her face easing. I've been so scared, Curtis. Scared that you would hate me when you found out. Scared that you wouldn't want to be with me anymore. But I don't want to lose you. And I realized then, it wasn't the secrets that had pulled us apart. It was the silence. The years of pretending everything was fine when it wasn't. But now, we were finally breaking that silence. We were facing the truth together. I smiled, a small, tentative thing at first. We'll figure it out. We always do. Maybe we'll never know everything, but we don't have to. We just have to move forward. Together. She nodded, and for the first time in weeks, there was peace between us. Not the kind of peace that comes from burying things, but the kind that comes from sharing the weight of the past and deciding that it won't control us anymore. We sat down on the couch together, no words needed. The silence now felt different. Not heavy, not anxious, but hopeful. And for the first time in a long time, I knew that no matter how broken we might have seemed, we were whole again. The sun had finally set outside, the sky turning to a deep shade of purple. It felt like the world had shifted, like a new chapter was beginning. I had no idea what the future would bring, but I knew this. I wasn't alone anymore. And that was enough.